Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on health and wellness. We are very, very excited to have Steve Hubert here to talk to us on this topic. Prior to getting started, I'd just like to give all of you a little bit of information, things you want to know as we go through today's webinar. Because of the number of people on the call today, you will all be remaining in the mute mode, which means we're unable to hear you. We do want your questions. So the best way to handle that is in your control panel for today's webinar. You have a place where you can type questions. We will be monitoring that throughout the program. I'll be feeding questions to Steve where they fit in, and we'll do absolutely our best at getting your questions answered, making sure you're getting the information you want today. Just want to tell you a little bit about Steve. I have the privilege of calling Steve a friend. We've known each other for years. Both of us work in the same company doing training and public speaking. And then I had the privilege of having Steve become one of the certified professional coaches. Steve, his background is varied. He's a psychology professor, and he's also a tennis pro. Fascinating combination, and I think a great combination for insight on health and wellness. So looking forward to learning from Steve, hearing his insights, and I'm going to share with you that one of the things Steve has said to me multiple times is how excited he is about passing on this information, and that his goal is that it's helpful and meaningful to each and every one of you. So Steve, thank you for being here. Welcome, and please go ahead and take over.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely. You're coming in great.
Awesome. Well, listen, y'all, I thank you so much for being here today. And Kathy, thank you so much for the kind words. And yes, I am very passionate about this subject. And I'll share with you in a little bit why I'm so passionate about it. But thanks, Kathy, for the introduction. I call it three of my passions. One is I have a deep, deep love for the game of tennis, and believe that exercise produces so much more than just what it stands for as far as being active, but it really is a great source of physical health, and also the research has shown, which I'll go by a little bit later, that our mental health is much better through this. So I love the game as well. I'm passionate about fueling the body and what it needs to run and run efficiently. And as well at the end is I believe, I kind of take a three-pronged system when I look at health and wellness. I look at it and I ask myself these three questions, and I've kind of used my own internal monologue with this. But one is, how are you emotionally right now? How are your stress factors? Number two, what are you putting in your body for ultimate nutrition? And number three, are you getting enough exercise? And I was sharing with Kathy earlier, exercise is not really a problem for me because right now, you know, being on the tennis court about 20 hours a week and working with teams and running around, for me it's just an effort to keep my weight up. But actually, let me share a quick story with you, because that's actually why I came to the end of myself and believe in these three components of health. So I'm going to share a story. I'm actually going to take you way back in time, probably farther back than I really want to, because I know now that where I am today, that I'm going to take you back to when I was about 22 years old. Right now I'm 43 years old. But I was about 22 years old, and I actually had the privilege of playing college tennis for the University of Central Florida. I'm actually in the Orlando area. I actually run a tennis center up in Lake Mary. But at that point in time, I did not understand this relationship that I want to share with you all today, is that there was a relationship between what I was putting in my body and disease. And I had always grown up, I was kind of a family where both parents worked. You know, we went out, and my national pastime was Burger King. So I used to love Burger King in high school and at a college. I could eat a couple of donuts, eat Burger King, eat another hamburger, and I could play a three-set match and win and have no problem with it. But, you know, as time went on, I began to understand this relationship, that I was running my body like it was a Porsche, but what I was putting in my body was one that really ran a Yugo or a compact car, or even an electric car today, a smart car. So I had to come to the end of myself and realize what was going on. Well, I was diagnosed in 1989 with an autoimmune disease. And what had basically had happened to me is my weight, my body weight, I'm going to tell you how tall I am. I'm actually 5'11" and a half. I'm just maybe half an inch short of 6 foot. I never made it because I didn't drink enough milk. But that's okay. That's for later. But what was happening in my life is that I had to realize that my weight was dropping so fast because what was happening to me is my body was shutting down. I went from being about 152 pounds in 1987 to going to 1989 where I hit 136 pounds. That was not normal for somebody my height. I even had friends of mine that would come and give me the double look, and it wasn't for a good reason. I wasn't getting a double take anymore for good reasons. I was getting it for bad reasons. And people are looking at me and say, Stephen, what is wrong? What is going on? And I look at them and say, it's no big deal. I've just been really stressed and been busy. Well, 10 years had actually progressed in my life, so I'm going to take you forward. I'm not going to take you through each year, but I am going to take you to 1999 because I remember very specifically we had this big Y2K. And what had happened was I was at a Brazilian New Year's Eve party. And I'll just tell you something. I had a lot of friends who were Brazilian, and Brazilians do not get started with the party until about 2 or 3 in the morning anyways. So I was at that party, and I began to feel really bad. I started getting chills, or almost to the point where I felt like I couldn't get up from where I was sitting. Well, I had actually passed out at that party, and I had no alcohol, by the way, but I actually collapsed. And I had someone that needed to take me back to my apartment because I was in such bad shape. I actually was 2 days sleeping. And it seemed like I could get a full night's sleep, but feel like I had never gotten any sleep that night. So I knew something was wrong with me, so I went to a doctor. And the doctor said, something's wrong with you. I think you have an infection. Let's get you on a round of antibiotics. So I took a round of antibiotics. And it didn't work. It came back 3 months later and said, no, it's not getting better. He said, well, let's put you on more powerful antibiotics. That'll do it. So I went in there and I said, okay. I listened to the doctor. The doctor knew what they were talking about, according to what I thought. And I took a more powerful round. I said to the doctor, no, it's not working. He said, well, listen, you're a tough case. I'm going to put you on steroids. Steroids will do it. It'll clean your body out and you'll be fine. So I went through that, took some steroids. And at that point, nothing happened. I really came at the end of myself, and it was a height of frustration at that point. So I go to the next step, and I actually met somebody who dealt in the holistic area. And they said to me, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask you to juice raw fruits and vegetables for 90 days. Give it a 90-day try, and at the end of 90 days, tell me how you feel. And guess what, y'all? I began to feel better. And for the first time in my life, I realized the central point that what I was putting in my body was determinant of what I was going to get out of my body. And that's kind of my story. And that's why I'm passionate about what I do. I believe in an active lifestyle, but I believe that only that will not be sufficient. And so I really hope you enjoy what we're going to share today. So I'm going to turn my screen over, and we'll get started. Let me give you just a little basic agenda here. We're going to take a look at American health today. And we're really going to ask a question here and say, are we healthy today as Americans? I'm going to give you some statistics you might find very surprising. Second of all, we're going to talk about the reasons. Why are we so unhealthy? It's one thing to look at a snapshot and say, yes, we are unhealthy. I see that. But why? What are some of the reasons why we're unhealthy? Number 3, which I find you have to have this, is let's find some solutions. Once we see the what and we find out the why, let's see what we can do to solve the problem. And last but not least, I want to go over some simple tips that if you're a coach and you were wanting to help your clients, what would be a good starting point? And what would be a good end point with the client, and where do you want them? I'll talk about ourselves as well, because we can talk all day to help some of our clients out, but we got to make sure that we are in the same position too. I always learned this quote that says, never take advice from someone more screwed up than yourself. And so I wouldn't take financial advice from someone who is in debt, but if I was going to take health and wellness coaching, what can I do in my life to be more prepared for that and have a good story? So that's kind of what we're going to be doing. And last but not least, we'll cover some resources. Okay, let's move on. Let's take our snapshot real quick. And what I want to do is I want to preface this by saying this. This might be some startling news, but the good thing is today's presentation and what I want to share with you today is not all about bad news. It's about good news too. But before we have a roadmap where we want to go to, we want to find out where are we now. So here's a little snapshot of Americans today. This is actually, I'll tell you where I got some of this information from just so you can reference it. But this says here that 33% of Americans have some form of heart disease. That was actually taken back in 2007 from the American Heart Association. That's about a third. Approximately 40% today will have cancer. Actually, the statistics are this. 1 in 2 men and 1 in 3 women will have cancer in his or her lifetime. So it comes out to approximately about 40%, about 4 in 10. Here's another one you might be interested in. 1 in 3 adults today are not overweight, but 1 in 3 adults today are getting to the point where they're obese. I will share something with you very interesting. And I was actually, I'm a people watcher because I'm a psychologist as well. I love psychology. So I like to watch people. And I actually went to Universal Studios back in April of last year. And I sat there and I watched. And I can't tell you how many kids that I saw were not just a little overweight, but were actually borderline on the obesity factor. And I saw one child in particular that had a turkey leg in his right hand, and he had an ice cream bar in his left hand, and he ate both at the same time. And to me, that was very startling. And this is why type 2 diabetes is on the rise today. There's actually 2 types of diabetes. There's type 1 diabetes, which really is not the preventable kind of diabetes, but type 2 diabetes, you're finding out, is very, very preventable. As a matter of fact, the nickname for type 2 diabetes, which we also call adult onset diabetes, which they actually no longer call adult onset diabetes any longer because kids are getting type 2 diabetes. But the relationship or the word is called diabesity. They're actually calling type 2 diabetes, the nickname is diabesity. They're finding the relationship between obesity and type 2 diabetes. So let's take a look at our children. I don't know how many of you have children out there, but let's take a quick look at them. And if you look at this picture, it kind of tells it all. It tells the story. At every corner we can find a McDonald's. It's very difficult though in our schedule, and that's kind of what I want to share with you today. Is we're fast on the go. We got jobs, we got lives, we got clients to touch and to help out, and we may not have all the time in the world to eat right. But the McDonald's is the closest thing, the fastest thing. And we're going to take a look at our children real quick. By age of 12, children have developed beginning stages of hardening of the arteries. And as a matter of fact, I don't need to be morbid or anything like that, but they find these things out as they're doing autopsies on children. Actually, the #1 cause of death or mortality rate in children is still car accidents. And when they do autopsy, they find that there has been hardening of the arteries by the age of 12. We'll go back here a little bit. And children are missing more days in school due to illness. I know that we talk a little bit about the immune system and its effect on the body. So right now, at this point in time, we look at the statistics and we want them to get better. And unfortunately, right now in our country, they're not getting better. So one of my biggest passions today is not only for people's health on the inside, but also I want to see people getting better and attack the obesity that's in our country today. So let me tell you this from a coaching standpoint, you will never be short of clients, people that really need help, that want clear solutions. So I hope I can find those out. Free and healthy. Here we go. Let's go on to the why a little bit. Negative stress reactions. I'm actually going to share a story with you, and I share the story a lot, and it's not a story I'm very proud of. I'll be quite honest with you, but hey, if it can help someone else out, then I'm totally willing to share it. I remember a particular time when I was doing my internship. I was actually working at a private counseling center, and I was doing my internship. I had a boss who was, how do I say it? We talk about personality types. He was in the director category. He was very, very very strong personality. And as I was leaving the counseling, I needed to come back to the office. Well, you know, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what could be going on right now? So I have a client that has just, maybe they had said that they want to take their own life. What could it be? And I said to this person, I said, well, you know, what's happening here? Why do I need to come back? And he says, well, you didn't stack the chairs. And I was like, excuse me? I didn't stack the chairs. What are you talking about? I need you to come back. I said, well, I'm not coming back. He said, yes, you are. I said, no, I'm not. He said, yes, you are. I said, no, I'm not. He says, yes, you are. And I took the phone and I hung up. Well, I kind of internalized, I'm kind of a passive aggressive, so I let things bother me all day long. And that's how I handle my stress. So I'm getting home, and as I'm walking the door, and my sweet wife, she says, honey, how was your day? I looked at her and said, I don't want to talk about it. So I go into the room, and my favorite thing to do when I'm stressed out is watch ESPN. I can watch the sports network and forget about my life. Everything's great. Well, I know that those stress reactions cause hit on my immune system. I didn't feel particularly well. And also my relationships and my psychological health, that wasn't doing good as well because I was taking an avoidance type of reaction to the stress. So this can be a factor here. Also, eating unhealthy. Well, I talked a little bit about my diet and where it took me at the end. Here's another reason. You know, I'd love to share this formula with you. This is just a fantastic formula. And a lot of people go, you know, I've heard different numbers being thrown around out there, but here's what they usually say. If you want to get a good gauge on how much water you need to be drinking, here's a formula if you want to write this down, if you have a scrap piece of paper. Well, what I do is I actually take the person's body weight. And what I do is I divide by 2, and then that converts the number into ounces. So right now I'm at 174. So if I cut that in half, I'm probably at about 85 to 86, you know, if I take that in half. And that's how many ounces of water I should be drinking. So what I really need to do for me is I have usually a standard water bottle. We got about 23 ounces of water. I know that I got to be drinking at least 3 or 3.5 of those a day to have enough. Now, I will tell you this, I'll be quite honest with you. If you are dehydrated, if you don't drink enough water, here's what's going to happen to be the end result. You are going to, that's actually going to be released out of your system until your body begins to adapt and says, oh, okay, you're giving me the water I really always needed, so now I know what to do with it. A lot of people today are really in dehydration mode, but the body has an uncanny way of protecting itself. So that's usually a good formula for drinking enough water. Also, we're not getting enough sleep. Matter of fact, I got a quote I'm going to share with you from one of my heroes, and he talked about how important sleep really is. A lot of us are not getting the recommended amount of sleep. Usually, here's what happens. We need to have 2 REM cycles, rapid eye movement cycles, a night. So 2 of them is what we need. The body is amazing. If you get 6 hours of sleep on a regular basis, your body will actually adapt and give you the 2 REM cycles in that 6-hour period of time. But once you start going below 6 hours, here's what begins to happen. Your body begins to pull on other areas of your system to be able to recover for itself. So what the end result is, basically what it is this. The end result becomes you're not getting the 2 REM cycles in, they're getting cut in half, and you're not getting the amount of sleep you need, and we're walking around very, very unaware and very focused on what's going on, and not taking a hit on our immune system. So here's what the overall issue is in today's society. Our society wants to take a treatment approach instead of a preventive approach. Today, modern medicine tells you this. I'll give you an example of a tree. If I have a tree right now that has brown leaves and it's beginning to look like it's withering away, will we take the leaves and take maybe a spray paint or spray can and spray the leaves green again and say, okay, the tree's okay? Wouldn't that sound ridiculous to you? Well, that's what's happening with our bodies. We're treating symptoms, but we're not getting into the underlying reasons why the symptoms are happening today. So it becomes a lot easier. And so let me give you a couple things I think could be the systemic reasons why. It's very easy. You know, doctors today are ruled by managed care. They see you for 15 or 20 minutes, and they need to get on with you and see the next person. Maybe insurance companies, and I don't want to get into anything involving politics, but I'm just trying to tell you what the true nature of the issue is today with doctor practices. Also, we have very powerful marketing messages that are going on. For example, I'll give you the commercials that we see today. We've got a drug for everything, guys. We have a drug that promises we got to use SSRIs and say, you know, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Say, you know, if you take this, you can increase the amount. Well, what are some of the reasons why they're in that way in the first place? What are some of the other factors we need to look at? We are inundated every day with quick solutions, with things that are fast and easy for our lifestyle. And we go and we take them because they're that easy. So marketing has a lot to do with it today. So, hey, we analyze some of the problems. Is anybody ready to find out some solutions? And let me just kind of pause and see if anybody has any questions so far. Kathy, we have anything from the audience?
Actually, Steve, what has happened, a couple of people had questions, and then you answered it almost at the same time, and then they came back to me with, okay, that was what I needed to know. It's on track right now.
Oh, that's really awesome.
Yep,
okay.
You did great.
I don't think I've ever done that before, so thank you. Okay. Well, if anybody else has any other questions, please, I would love to answer them. I'm not the kind of person that says, hold all questions now, and I'll get. If you need something, just let me know. I'm more than happy to share it and to try to help. So, or if you have anything at the end, I'm more than happy to do that as well. So anyways, we've gone through a couple things. We got through the what is going on in our society. We got a snapshot. We're able to get a little deeper and see the why, what is going on in our lifestyle today as Americans. And we got a little thumbs up here because, listen, we've been into the negative what, we got into the negative why, but hey, let's try to find some positive solutions here. What is happening right now where we can take it and make this better and turn this generation around for the best? I will tell you this and share this on the PowerPoint, but they are saying, and I'm very close. I try to be very careful when I say they. Well, who's they? But I've heard this from multiple sources that this may be and I say maybe because I believe in the better of human beings that we can turn this around. But this may be or could be the first generation today where our parents have a higher life expectancy than their kids. So let's get these solutions. Let's find out what's going on here. So here's a solution for stress. I think, and again, this is the three-pronged system, everybody. Use your emotional wellness right now, or your potential client, your coaching client. So let's start out that way. Let's take a snapshot and let's say, okay, what can we do about this? So we've got stress. Let me give you a really, really good thing on this. I actually just used this with a couple of my tennis clients. We were out on the tennis court, and I had a player that came up to me and said, Steve, I tell you what, I am so frustrated. I take all these lessons. I take these clinics. I don't even take all my clinics lessons for you. I take it from another pro. So she was working with two pros. And she said, I just can't seem to get over the hump. I go out on the court. I'm a mess. I have anxiety. I get to a third set, and sure enough, I just collapse. I can't make it through. My nerves take over. Well, this is a great thing to do to improve how you're responding to stressors out there. It's called PMR, and PM stands for Progressive Muscle Relaxation. And here's what I mean, and I can't see you or anything, but I'm going to do it with you. But I'm going to ask everybody to do me a favor right now, and I want you to take your body and make it as tight as you possibly can. That's what's happened to my voice right now. I'm squeezing everything I have in me right now. My feet, my hands, my voice is all tight. And I'm going to begin again the countdown. 10 being the tightest, which we are right now. 9, 8, 7, 6. Slowly release those muscles. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What's happened to you right now is two things. Number one is you're being self-aware. You're becoming more aware of where your body is. I've always taken this. I've been a big believer in something called cognitive behavioral psychology. And what CBT or cognitive behavioral psychology says is this. It says the way you think dictates the way your body reacts. You see, when you're under stress and you're trying to figure out ways to cope with it, your body begins to get tight, And as you begin to release those muscles, there's an opposite effect that happens. You become more self-aware and you relax that tight body. It actually clears your brain because research indicates that your blood flow, you have 3 areas of your brain. One's your cerebral cortex, one area is your limbic system, and the other area is your brainstem. And your cerebral cortex is purely responsible for logical thinking. See, when you're under stress, you're under duress, we don't always think the most logical. And when this PMR technique is used, they show more blood flow going to the proper areas of the brain to help you truly relax and be able to deal with the headaches of everyday life. So I got one guy up here, and pretty much their hands are on their head. One person has probably got a headache. The other person looks like they're just about ready to go ballistic, and the other person is like, please help me, on the bottom. So breathing. So about breathing. I had a great technique for breathing that's just been used so well. I actually use this a lot with anger management clients that I worked with in my internship. And what I have them do is I call it if I write this down, it's called the 4-2-4. 4-2-4. What I have them do is I have them take one deep breath, preferably in with their nose. So I'm going to do it real quick. I'll count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 2 seconds. 1, 2. And exhale. 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. We call that the 4-2-4. Here's my encouragement to you, though. You want to get up to 10 times, but do not start out with 10 times, or you might pass out because your body will be like, okay, you're giving me way too much oxygen here. I'm not used to this. I'm used to taking quick, shallow breaths when I'm stressed out. Just go ahead and gradually acclimate yourself into it. Maybe do 3 at one time. See how that feels. Maybe go to 5 and try to work your way up to 10. It really helps a lot. Okay, exercise. You're going to love this study. It was a famous study done about a couple years ago. They've actually have been able to revalidate this. And exercise. The general rule of thumb is rigorous exercise every day. That's actually where your heart rate is going up to a certain degree. And what I like to be, I'll be on the elliptical. I like to do the elliptical a lot. I don't do as much running as I used to. I kind of do enough running on the tennis court, but being a 43-year-old man, I'm not able to run as much. I kind of get these little knee injuries, so running is not really conducive for my situation. But I get on the elliptical. It helps me a lot, but it gets that cardio and that heart rate up. But 20 minutes a day is very good at rigorous exercise to get good cardiovascular health. There was actually a famous study that was done, and it was an amazing study. What they did is they took 3 groups. And on the 3 groups, they applied 3 techniques, and there was actually a study dealing with depression. The first group, what they did was they actually put them on medication. And usually the standard medications today are the SSRIs I was talking about before. We call SSRIs are called selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. They showed through research that lower serotonin levels lead to more behaviors of depression, depressed thought. What these inhibitors do is they block the reuptake of the neurotransmitter serotonin, and so there's more serotonin in the synapse of the brain. I won't get too technical, but they raise those levels, and it helps the person to a certain degree. Well, one of the things that they found is every 6 months your body chemistry changes. So sometimes those medications may not be as effective, or they may not be doing as much as they did before. Well, the second group, they gave them a process which I believe in called cognitive behavioral therapy. They disputed some irrational thoughts that were going on and tried to reinstall new thoughts to change how they felt. Matter of fact, Kathy, I'm going to actually name Kathy as one of the people in my life. Your organizer today is one of the people that's had a huge impact on my life. I can't speak enough good things about her, but she has actually had an impact on me personally and professionally to changing my thought patterns. So you're in good hands, everybody. She's an amazing woman. And they took that group, and they had good benefits. The third group, they put them on just exercise alone. no medication, no cognitive behavioral therapy. And guess what group did the best? I'm going to tell you, it's surprising, but all three groups by themselves did the same. There was no marginal increase in any of the groups. The exercises group was just as effective as the cognitive group, and the cognitive group was just as effective as the medication group. Here's what they did find, which I thought was really neat, is the incorporation of all three actually had the most lasting results and the most benefit, and it lasted longer. But I thought it was really interesting to know how important exercise really was according to the study. So, all right, we'll go ahead and move on from there. So let's talk about foods in nutrition. We'll talk a little bit about that. One thing I watch out for in my diet, and I'm a big believer in moderation. I've looked at different kind of diets. I've looked at the paleo diet, which I found some interesting things with that, if you've heard of the paleo diet. I take a look at a lot of things, and I see different types of diets have good points, but they have bad points as well. And I really try to be careful with my wording here and saying too much dairy. It's not that I don't believe in dairy. I'm not one of these people that says no dairy ever. But I believe anything in moderation is the most beneficial. But here's one thing, especially if you're getting exercise, I find that when I'm drinking or have too much dairy in my diet, it actually inhibits my performance on the tennis court especially, because a lot of times when you're exercising, your muscles are expending lactic acids. And so dairy and lactose, these types of things actually increase lactic acid buildup, which actually you'll find yourself getting more tired because the muscles are getting dehydrated a little or quicker. So watch out for overuse of dairy. Also processed food. And again, moderation. I still love that hamburger. I think it's very good. I try not to make myself obsessive about my food choices, but I try to understand that these things in moderation are very beneficial to me. Actually, let me go back here. I want to talk about the difference between fats and trans fats. Today, there's a lot of trans fats in our diet. And basically, trans fats are foods that have been genetically modified. Your body is unable to know what to do with trans fats. So when you're getting a lot of trans fats in your diets, what has happened is it's causing a lot of free radical damage in your body. And your body actually has to work extra hard just to get rid of those things, and they never break down in your body. As a matter of fact, they actually took a whole thing of Crisco oil. And what they did with the Crisco oil is they set it out in the middle of a field. So they put it in the middle of a field, and guess what? Not even the animals would even touch it. It was trans fat, period, is what it was. The animals wouldn't even touch it, but we as human beings are willing to eat it and put it in our diet. Sugar. I want to give you the formula that I think could change your life about sugar. But first, before I do that, I want to give you my hurricane analogy. Hurricanes tend to grow with warm water. We here in Florida, we know a lot about hurricanes. We know that hurricanes are fueled by warm water. Let me tell you this, as warm water fuels a hurricane, so does sugar become the fueling mechanism of cancer. Cancer actually feeds off sugar. And they're finding some very interesting studies with cancer and inflammation in the body, and we know that sugar causes inflammation in the body, which is why it's so damaging to people with diabetes, because these are free radical hits, these are inflammations that are happening in the body. With diabetes, one of the things that absolutely kills them too is sometimes fruits. Even though it's a natural form of sugar, it's causing inflammation in the body and wreaking havoc. So let me give you a formula that I found to be very beneficial to me as it relates to sugar. Here's what you do. You take two things they have to show you in any ingredients, whether it's a bottle or if it's a Coke or let's see. Matter of fact, my favorite pasta, I love Prego sauce. I found it has a lot of sugar. Well, here's what happens. They have to give you the grams, the amount of grams of sugar. So what you do is this, if you want to jot this down, you take the amount of grams of sugar, you multiply it by the serving size, which you also get in the ingredients or the label. So take the grams of sugar, multiply it by the serving size, and then divide by 4. And that formula will show you how many teaspoons of sugar that you're getting in your diet. Well, they have found that today children are getting almost 5 pounds of sugar a week in their diet. So that is something that you can kind of regulate and find out, well, how much sugar does something really have? You know, everybody says, well, you know, Coca-Cola obviously has a lot of sugar. Well, if you take that, you'll see that in a 20-ounce bottle of Coke, there's actually 16 teaspoons of sugar. So you're saying, okay, well, that sounds about right. It's bad for you. I knew that already, Steve. But here, there is actually something on the market we call Fruitopia, which actually has on its label, it says, nutritious drink for kids. Well, they found out when they saw the exact same serving size with this drink that's supposed to be nutritious for kids, it had 21 teaspoons of sugar in it. So there's a lot of hidden sugar and things that we don't know about, obvious and not obvious. So watch out for starches in your diet. Don't get too starchy. Look at the carbohydrate factor, because carbohydrates, and for me, before I got smart, I actually have gone through times where I've slacked off and the inner tube starts to grow around my waist. And of course my wife looks at me and says, you might want to do something about that. So watch out for starch, too many starches in your diet, and alcohol, because alcohol actually breaks down the sugar. Here's a couple exceptions, though. Maybe a little bit of alcohol, you can have your cake and eat it too, is, look for this. They actually have gluten-free beers. Wheat is most of wheat today is genetically modified. So what they did was they anticipated the explosion in the population, and they started genetically modifying their wheat. So most of the wheat that you see today, 99% of it is genetically modified, and that's why a lot of people today are getting these gluten allergies. They'll have an allergic reaction to wheat, which they never had before, because the wheat today that's grown is genetically modified to account for the change. So I recommend gluten-free beer. Also, and I mean this in moderation, I don't want to turn anybody, and I'm laughing out loud here, I don't want to turn anybody into having a drinking problem. Like, hey, I heard tequila is great, let's keep drinking it. In moderation, everybody. But tequila is not a grain-based alcohol, actually. And there are some vodkas you can drink that are potato-based. They don't have that wheat. So there might be some exceptions to the rule there. So, okay, foods to gravitate toward, fruits and vegetables. I will tell you this, if you knew somebody that has issues with diabetes, I would still recommend watching out for the fruits, overuse of the fruits. Even if somebody I talked to, they ate a banana, and carrots are actually a big one that breaks down the sugar. That's actually a vegetable. But carrots would be a vegetable you want to watch out for. But fruits and vegetables usually are a very good source of nutrition. They always say for a person without those exceptions, they can never really eat too many fruits and vegetables. However, you can take too many vitamins that can be toxic for the body. But the body knows how to break down fruits and vegetables. It's very used to doing that. As a matter of fact, I don't have the slide here today, but I saw this most awesome slide, and they showed a picture of an apple, and they said, what is in an apple? And it showed over 20,000 phytonutrients in an apple. It's amazing to see how many good things are in the actual whole food instead of maybe opposed to a supplement. Lean meats and seafood are very good. Matter of fact, seafood can be a good source of omega-3s. By the way, with omega-3, watch out. If you do take supplements of omega-3, I would really recommend getting the omega-3 that's grown in the cold waters. The omega-3 is more potent. So look on the label for omega-3 and see if it's from cold water fish. Nuts and seeds are a good source of nutrition as well, a good source of fiber. And actually, I am going to go with the paleo diet a little bit. If you want to look at paleo diet, I think sometimes some healthy fats are okay because it's good for brain function. I'm not saying, go and gorge yourself on bacon. I'm like Doug Heffernan on the, King of Queens, where I look at it and say I would eat my big toe if it was wrapped in bacon. So, but, okay, in a nutshell, I know I'm kind of running a little behind. I apologize. I'm seeing the time here. But gluten-free is great. Talk about a little bit about lactose-free. Also non-GMO. This stands for non-genetically modified. Look for things that are non-genetically modified. Matter of fact, soy if you take soy protein, be very, very careful because most soy is genetically modified, like wheat is. Watch out because that actually has estrogen in it. If you're a female, that can be very bad, especially if you have thyroid issues. So make sure the soy is non-genetically modified. Estrogen free, and that's kind of what I was just saying to reiterate that. And be careful about what type of soy. Make sure the soy is non-genetically modified. Okay, formulas that work. Went over this. Just for reference, a little summary. Body weight divided by 2. Beautiful formula. Sugar formula. Serving size.
I'd like to jump in because we had some questions come in, and one of them pertains to the water. And so if I can interrupt you and give you that question. How do we know when we are approaching dehydration?
That's a very good question. I go by actually 2 things. The first one I go by is tightness in the muscles. I have found that tightness in the muscles can be a precursor to becoming dehydrated. Maybe if you're finding yourself that if you do some stretching, you're finding yourself having difficulty doing that, having to get going before stretching. Another one actually that I find, and sometimes I don't even notice it, but especially because here's what happens. When you start to become dehydrated, your brain is the storehouse of the most water. There's more body. I see people, you lose your focus a little bit. You'll have trouble focusing on things, or maybe you'll get snappy with somebody, maybe get irritated and say, where'd that come from? What's happening is the water is being barred from your brain to going into the rest of your organs to protect yourself. Those are a couple of things I go by when I find out I'm dehydrated. Did I answer the question?
Okay. Yeah, that's great. And there's another question.
Sure.
You mentioned that something is released out of our system when we're dehydrated. What is that?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
You mentioned something was released out of our system when we're dehydrated.
Yes. What happens out of our muscles is we release something called lactic acids out of those muscles. And what happens very quickly, if you're expending a lot of energy and releasing lactic acids, you'll find yourself the next day being so sore you can't even move. And when you're properly hydrating your muscles, you'll actually inhibit the lactic acid buildup in those muscles. Did that answer the question?
Yes. No, that's great on that one. And I've got other questions. They fit in a place different than this, so maybe when you're ready, I'll feed them to you.
Sure. And let me actually pick you up on that one real fast as well. Water on the inner side can also not be a good thing, especially if you're not getting enough electrolytes. If you're sweating and expending a lot of energy, I even encourage, especially high-performance athletes, I encourage them to actually get Pedialyte and actually dilute it with water as they're on the court. And I actually use something very specifically with something that I encourage people to take that actually will also rehydrate the muscles and provide good electrolyte health during that time. So anyways, okay. And yeah, those questions at any time, Kathy, just let me know and I'll answer them.
Yeah, well, go ahead and do your formulas and then maybe I'll feed them to you because we've got several.
Okay, yeah, no problem. That sounds good. And these are 2 formulas in a nutshell. I wanted to give them to you on the screen too. I know I said them a little bit early, but just so you could get a visual. And Kathy, I'm sure they'll get this PowerPoint. So, all right, body mass index. There are ways to chart your body mass index. I don't know the exact formula for it. I wish I'd taken more math classes, and that's one thing about psychology is we have the opportunity to tell people when they ask us a question. I go back to someone. I don't know. What do you think? that's why I never got a degree in math. But there are actually things you can download. There's actually a website that I have that actually I can go in my back office and calculate my body mass index to see where I'm at. It'll calculate it for me. So remember, it's about promoting lean muscle, not starving yourself. And I do want to show you this. It's so true. The first 3 letters in the word diet is die, D-I-E. It's not about, and I try to show people when I'm helping them to lose weight, it is not about the scale, getting obsessed about the scale. Look for the inches. The inches come off first because what we really want to do, we want to have something that's not only going to help them shed the pounds but promote lean muscle. We want someone to be healthy and not starving themselves. Okay, sleep. Circadian rhythms. What they found through research is that when your circadian rhythms are interrupted, you go through something we call in the day, we call microsleep. And here's a quote from one of my favorite people. Roger Federer is one of my heroes, one of the best tennis players in the world, is to me, in my opinion, the best tennis player in the world. But Roger Federer said this, of all the things he's accomplished in his life, winning Grand Slam after Grand Slam tournament, he said, my favorite pastime is sleeping. Even Roger Federer, the most active person in the world, recognized the value of good sleep. So again, we talked about caffeine. Caffeine can be a very, very big determinant on how well you sleep. I'm not saying don't drink caffeine, but if you're sensitive to caffeine, be very careful about drinking that cup of coffee close to the time you go to bed, because it can actually interrupt your brainwave patterns where you're not getting into a deep enough sleep. And circadian rhythms, by definition, are biological rhythms that we calculate in a single day, a 24-hour period of time. I'll give an example of someone, I know Kathy's done a lot of traveling, but if you go from west to east coast and lose 3 hours, it almost seems like you don't really get your stride back until a couple days. That's because your circadian rhythms are being interrupted, your brainwave patterns, and getting the right sleep. So let's face it, we're busy. I'm going to go through these things really quick, and I apologize for going too long. I'm just really excited about this stuff. I love it. Let's face it, we are busy.
Time, Steve. You're fine. You're fine.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. I appreciate it. Okay, thank you. Let's face it, we're busy. All of us are busy. We have to admit it. We're busy. I'm busy. And I'm going to tell you right here that I'm not always perfect, but I try to do the best I can to walk the walk. I really do. Well, I have to in my line of profession. If I'm going to survive on the tennis court, then I have to walk the walk, or I don't make it out the court the next day and end up asleep. But here's some easy methods I want to lay out for you. I've always been a really good big believer in things that break down properly in your body. I also do believe in supplementation, but I really believe in being very careful about what supplements you're taking, and I'll go over that a little bit. Be really careful about, I have found two things to be very, very helpful. One is whole food supplements can be very good for you because they break down, your body absorbs up in the 90s as far as the amount of material that goes into your system. Juicing is not bad. Juicing whole foods can be good. Watch out for one thing, though, is that through juicing, the juice goes directly into your stomach walls. It bypasses proper digestion, and oftentimes what it might do is play havoc on your glycemic levels. It might spike and lower your blood sugars too quickly. And also be very careful about that if you have what I call reactive hypoglycemia, or if you have diabetes. Be very, very careful about juicing. But we talk about bioavailability. You know, people look at labels and they say, well, this has 1,500 milligrams of this. This must be fantastic. Well, be careful because it's more about what your body is able to absorb than what it is about the amount of material you're getting. Oftentimes, and I don't want to be weird about this, but they have actually cleaned out septic tanks, and they find, amazingly, a lot of undigested vitamins that went through and were not properly absorbed by the body. Look for bioavailability. This is the ability of your body to absorb nutrition. We call it bioavailability. And I think we just say that so we can look smart. Trisort proteins. Really big on the Trisort concept. I've really gotten onto it and believe in it. Trisort proteins are actually something that is patented, but there's a couple of different types of whey proteins, and certain soy proteins can be very, very helpful in digestion. I would really stay away from any proteins that make this claim. You can get 40 or 50 grams of protein. I'm telling you, your body can only absorb a certain amount before it's going to release it. And you have to be careful because too much organs, it could cause issues with your kidneys and liver. So, and coaching. Having somebody, again, Kathy says it so well. When I've had a chance to listen to her speak, she says it better than I could, but I'm going to use Kathy on this. But look at coaching as that person that helps the individual out and is there to be a sounding board for the person, but does not enable the individual. What we want to do is we want to provide them tools and allow people to make the choices and to have us to help them to make better solutions for themselves. So coaching for health and wellness, let's go a little more into detail here. First of all, learn about health and wellness.
And
become a
Steve,
student of it.
That's a great place for some of the questions. And I'm having a blast reading through them. I wish I had more time to share these. Health and wellness is such a controversial topic because you have believers in so many different approaches to health and wellness. And so I've got about 20 different questions asked different ways.
Now, do I have to answer all of them? I'm just kidding.
You know, and so let me kind of pull them all together. People are interested in where to get information. They want to know where you learned health and wellness and things you recommend. For people are asking about specific different books or approaches to health and wellness. I've got people coming in with, you know, different comments on it and that kind of thing. So let me kind of throw that big picture to you and have you jump in on that.
Okay, that sounds good. Can you specify specifically what I can answer again one more time?
So they want to know where you learned about health and wellness and nutrition and just recommendations because they're out there.
Okay, yeah. I would say the first thing, I learned something from actually someone in the tennis industry. I learned a couple things. That's really where I got my roots and my beginnings with. I want to give you a couple of names that you want to look up. And they had a really uncanny way of tying in physical and psychological wellness. First person I've got to give credit to is a man named Pat Echeverry. And I'm trying to think of the book that I read, but I've actually met him in person and I've taken some of his specifically about physical health. And what he taught me was this. He said, Steve, I've worked with top international and national tennis players. He's worked with players such as Jim Courier. He's worked with Pete Sampras. He's worked with some of the top tennis players. But he said one thing that, and it really seeped into my heart. He said, I've helped them, but at the same time, I taught them about the understanding of burning your body out, that we call it exercise-induced oxidative stress. I learned that from Pat Echeverry. Incredible resource for me, and I can try my best to spell his name the right way. The second person that I actually really got the wellness component was from a man named Dr. Jim Loehr. And Dr. Jim Loehr focused more on the psychological wellness of the player and the athlete and how to deal with stress and anxiety and develop coping mechanisms on how to overcome that. Those are actually the two people in the very beginning that had a real impact on my life. And then when I started finding out specifically about what nutrition was good for me, what was not good for me, I actually was able to learn from a guy, last name is Vertebeden, and Dr. Jack Medina wrote an incredible book on it was the 23 tips that he gave on health and wellness, and talked about, he talked again about exercise-induced oxidative stress. Jack Medina actually worked with some of the top gymnasts way back in the 80s. He's gotten a little bit older, but that's really where my roots are from. Hope that helps.
Yeah, no, that's great. And to add to that, I've got a number of people sending in recommendations and things that they like. I can throw out a few of them. Probably I have too many to get them all out. So I've got one, and I'm unsure if I'm going to say this correctly. It's Fido's Raw Food, and it's ANI, and then the second name is PHYO, Raw Food. And he does different cookbooks. I've got somebody mentioning also, let's see.
Okay, I think I know, is that from the Hallelujah Diet? I've heard of, I think it might be. Is it from the Hallelujah Acres?
I am unsure with that one.
Okay, no problem.
Really don't.
If that is related to that, I'm a big believer in that as well. Talking about eating, I think this book touched about on the percentage of raw and cooked. And they recommended they eat 80% raw and 20% cooked. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's great. And then I've also got people talking about some specifics. So I've got comments on different foods, things with the omega oils, that kind of thing. There are so many great comments coming in. I want to let you know and let everybody on the call know we're probably super short on time to get to all of these.
Yeah.
So what we can do, I put this out, if somebody has a question and they feel like, hey, I really want information on this, email it to me. You can do that by replying on your registration for today's webinar. I'll pass it on to Steve and then follow up so that we make sure we're getting you that information.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't want to cut you short on those last couple of slides, Steve. So
I'm going to do this in a nutshell, but just it kind of gives you an overall idea what we're talking about. Nutritionists, trainers to partner, connect with insurance agents if you want to coach, because those are the people that have those individual cases of people you could do follow-up coaching. Matter of fact, I worked in the corporate world for a little bit, being a psychology professor, and one of the companies they have provide free coaching as well, and they might have so many they outsource a lot of coaching. Could be a great opportunity for you. This is me a little bit about some of the resources here. Matter of fact, I am a big believer what we call the 90-day challenge. I've actually, and I'm not trying to push any specific product, but I have found, if you heard ViSalus, I really have found ViSalus to be an amazing company. That what we do is we do something called a 90-day challenge. And I don't believe in New Year's resolutions, by the way. I think New Year's resolutions are a little too out there and they don't condense things. But what I do is I try to take my life 90 days at a time, and I love the theme that they use. So blogs, nytimes.com is a great, nytimes.com is a great one. Also, Teen Health and Wellness is a great resource. The AARP can be a really good resource to cover all different types of demographics. So, but healthandwellness.org. This is my phone number if you ever like to talk. And I put my email address here. It's slhuber03@me.com. And Kathy, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay, excellent. No, thank you very much, Steve. So I do want to thank everybody that's here. Very glad to have you here. What I'll do is hang around now and feed Steve some of these questions more specifically. I do realize we're pushing up against our time frame, so chances are some of the people have to jump back into their day. So let's start going into some of these questions and hopefully get as many as we can before people have to leave, that kind of thing. So Steve, a couple of people asked, what are your thoughts about dietitians and nutritionists?
What was the first one? I heard nutritionists.
Dietitian?
Oh, registered dietitians and nutritionists. Well, someone can actually call themselves a nutritionist, but a registered dietitian is the person who has the most education behind them. What they do is they can have a 4-year degree in nutrition, but they actually have to earn a master's degree in actual nutrition. As a matter of fact, we have a school here just north of us, the University of Florida, has an excellent registered dietitian program. So you go through education, a master's degree you have to earn, and from there you have to believe there's a certification process or a process where you earn hours to become an RD. A nutrition, someone can actually call themselves a nutritionist and not have as many credentials as far as what I believe. Or someone can call themselves nutrition certified.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm familiar with there's a lot of programs out there on nutrition certification. And as a matter of fact, you've got a couple of people asking about some of the different programs around the country specifically.
Okay.
So in addition to the one that's near you in Florida, are there others that you're familiar with or recommend?
Not really at this time. I am hooked in with people who are I'm as objective as I possibly can, but as far as really solid programs, the one I'm really able to say I stand by a lot is probably University of Florida. I would be worried about giving the other information where I feel like I was leading anybody astray, so I'm going to probably say I don't know completely.
Okay. Okay, excellent. Then I've got actually one comment saying on the dehydration when you were talking about that, they said sometimes chapped lips can be an indication of dehydration as well. I've got another. I'm sorry, go ahead, Steve.
No, you're absolutely right. Chaplets can actually be a sign of that as well, especially with sun exposure, because the sun is taking so much water out of our bodies. That's very true. Yep. Also,
Yeah.
disorientedness, raising body temperature as well. So that's a good comment.
Okay, excellent. And then I've got this one. The question is, are apples good for the digestive system?
Very good for the digestive system. Excellent for the digestive system. I would recommend two types of apples in particular that I find to be better than anyone. Brayburns and Pink Ladies.
I heard Pink Ladies, and what was the first one you mentioned?
First one is called Brayburn apples. Brayburn. And
okay, Brayburn and Pink Ladies.
Pink Ladies.
Excellent.
Very, very, very good. High in nutrition.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. And then I've got somebody making a comment on carrots and saying that they're a great source of nutrients and they're not that high on the glycemic index.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'm probably speaking more from the standpoint of juicing too many carrots. Eating them, you always have the fiber and the correct digestive process, and I'm sure in that using that way it's fine.
Right.
I probably misspoke. I was referring more from the juicing standpoint of getting the pure carrot juice. Now,
yeah.
I will say this, though. Beta-carotene by itself is not good, but when you get beta-carotene, alpha-carotene, alpha-tocopherol, and lutein, zeaxanthin, those are the four markers that show health in the blood. The carrots do give a lot of that, so that's good.
Okay. Okay, excellent. And then, Steve, I've got one asking you to talk about seafood and mercury or toxicity in seafood.
You've got to watch out for that. I definitely, mercury levels are rising, and especially for individuals that have difficulty processing metals for your body, that can actually be an issue. Watch out and find out which types of fish, are not in that environment. That's another reason why I really recommend cold water as opposed to warm water, where that is more effective and there's less of a chance of the mercury increases. That's a very good point.
Yeah. Well, in my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that sometimes it's it's more of a regional question where the fish come from in terms of level of mercury and toxicity. Steve, another one is, what is an acceptable amount, if any, of daily sugar?
Again, a balance is good. I think that sugars are healthy for an individual because I think it just depends on the person. I don't have a set formula with how much sugar is good. I would recommend this, though. Be very careful about the sugar intake early in the morning before you get going. And be careful with the sugar intake later at night before you go to bed, because that is what will cause increase in inflammation and increase in storing fat. So I would look at once the metabolism gets going, a little sugar is not bad at all. But be careful about drinking too much sugar too early and too late.
Right. Okay. And
I've got to get back to I really apologize. I have, gosh, I'm sorry. I actually got to get going.
Okay. No, I appreciate it. I know you took a lot of time out for us
so
today.
I apologize to everybody out there. I wish I could stay longer. I'm so glad everybody was so excited. Can I just take one more question?
Steve, I know what your schedule is. I will share with everybody. There's a couple of people that are sharing different websites and places that you can go. And one of the comments is a website, right.org, and you can find registered dietitians there.
Awesome.
So the idea of being able to find registered dietitians as having somebody that's an expert, that's great. So excellent there. And then lots of other recommendations on that. Steve, thank you so much for your time today, for your expertise. We appreciate that. We will put today's webinar up on our YouTube channel for those of you who would like to come back and see it again. And then, of course, Steve, thank you for sharing your contact information. You all have my contact information. Do let us know what else we can do to be helpful. So thank you, Steve.
Okay, Kathy. Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you again.
All right, take care. And all of you on the call, thank you for your time and participation today. We do hope to keep in touch with you and hear from you again soon.